Hello, my friends. Welcome back. And welcome back, operator Starsky or Andri, whichever name I will use. This is, I think, our third podcast together. So, hi.
Hello, my friend. Thank you so much for the invitation. Always a pleasure to be here.
And it's so weird because I wrote to you, let's make a podcast, and then we settled on it, and then we talked that we should make one on your channel, and then UATV, so which is like Ukrainian state TV, I guess, said that, okay, come to our podcast. I go there, which was 3 hours ago, and there you were on the panel with me.
Yeah. Well, the planet is round, as we say in Ukraine. When you meet people, it's either you slept or your friends on Facebook or you're like YouTubers. So UATV is a really, really cool channel. They started broadcasting in English recently, and even before the big invasion of Ukraine, they broadcasted, I think, in like 3 or 4 languages, like Russian, English, Arabic, and French, I think. But then they were kind of renovated, I don't know, and they started broadcasting again as soon as the Russian invasion started. And there they hired me as an observer, so I have like a monthly show there.
Wait, they hired you? You're hired by UATV?
Yeah, they recruited me, like, transparently.
I mean, we made that joke there already, but you are actually getting paid for this. So I want a paycheck. I want like CIA, NATO paycheck if possible, please. But you're actually getting it.
You wouldn't like to have that paycheck that I have 100%, but at the same time, I think it's a good opportunity to reach wider audience and also to invest some of experience that I have, for example, in the informational resistance that we have in Ukraine, for example.
By the way, I think it was 2023 July or September when I was in Ukraine, one of the NATO convoys, and I decided to stay 2 days longer, just like to enjoy Kiev with my friend Jasper. You met him also at the Surströmming challenge. But suddenly the UATV guy wrote to me for the first time then. I didn't know who they were or what's up, but they wrote to me and said, okay, maybe you want to come by the studio. And I didn't know what's up. I thought it's like a small YouTube channel. So I go there and there's a whole studio and they said, okay, now we're going to record live interview with you and it's going to be on TV. And that really scared me. I was not ready for that, but that's how I started with them, really randomly.
Oh my God, bro, this is like the studio where I had my very, very first interview as a press officer. Like, seriously. And recently I found a picture of that. It like brings very, very good memories and tears to my eyes.
But right now you're in Germany. Are you still a press officer?
No, I'm not a press officer. I became a reservist this year in February. Here in Germany, I'm staying with my girl, and it's again, yeah, it's something very, very important to me because we haven't seen each other for many, many, many years. That's why, you only live once. But at the same time, staying here is also a good opportunity for me, first of all, to learn the situation in Europe and also invest my knowledge in fighting Russian propaganda in Europe. Why it's important is because if Ukraine loses in Europe, Ukraine generally loses in the future, I mean, on the battleground.
I mean, yeah, this war is fought. I always say this on my channel. People maybe don't agree or use the sentence that, oh, Third World War as is something in the future. Well, I do believe we're in it now. I mean, 1939, 1st of September was agreed that, okay, the Hitler's invasion of Poland, but actually before it was Anschluss, it was the militarization of Czechoslovakia and Sudetenland. All of these are like preludes, and I think we're at the prelude era of World War III, and it's just like not throwing out around the word World War III, but actually this is three conflicts. I mean, China-Taiwan, Israel-Iran, and Russia-Ukraine, all connected to the same conflict, I think.
Yeah, and what scares me is, I have this very, very bad deja vu because 2021, before the Russian invasion, I had a YouTube channel in Ukrainian, and I was making videos. First of all, I was sharing my experience of operating at the front line back in the Donbass during the anti-terrorist operation, and I was sharing my experience with the civilians. What to have in your emergency backpack, what to do if you live in the frontline city or like city next to the front line, what to do in case of a possible Russian attack, what to do in case of an airstrike. Because 2021 airstrikes were not the case in Ukraine, and people generally didn't know what to do. So I tried to explain them that it's like the most devastating thing currently in possession of Russians and yada yada. And then I started making different videos already for people who were joining the territorial defense battalions, also trying to give them some kind of basis, because it's impossible to train a soldier using YouTube videos, right? However, Ukrainians can't do that anyways. Like, they use YouTube to learn how to operate like HIMARS and everything, F-16s. But generally, you can give some kind of basics. You can teach people like what to have with you, how to, I don't know, disguise or mask your equipment and things like that, how to modify your equipment to produce less sound, like the very, very basics, moving in column, moving information, etc. And now I have the feeling that most probably I will have to do the same, like make the same content, only in English language for like European community, because Russia is planning its invasion of Europe by the end of 2020s. A lot of intelligence agencies are talking about it. And apparently we will have to prepare for this stuff one more time. So I have this very, very bad deja vu. I never wanted our European friends to encounter anything like that, but we still need to prepare. And though it may sound a bit, demotivating, but at the same time, if you are prepared, if you know how to act, if you spend some time, invested some of your time and effort in preparation, you will have a better security and better confidence and more chance to survive.
I know the intelligence agencies are talking about it, but I just don't want to be the guy who's not taking Russia seriously. I am, but looking at how the Baltics are militarizing and very fast, and looking what Poland is doing, then the invasion into Europe, I mean, they're definitely not going to invade Finland because they would lose, that's a fact. And Poland also. So the only way is Baltics, because they would lose to Poland also, even now. So, and if they want to invade Baltics in, let's say, 2029, 2030, there is an entire I think it's German brigade, or was it British? Sorry if I'm mistaken here, stationed full-time in Lithuania. There's a British tank brigade being ready to short notice deploy into Estonia. And I think Latvians have something up also with somebody. I'm not sure about the facts. The thing is, to invade the Baltics means to kill 2,000-3,000 Western soldiers. There's no other way to invade the Baltics. So that would be the price. So Russia would have to pay that price, which means all-out active war with NATO immediately, which in my eyes, I don't know if I'm delusional, but I think it would mean destruction of all Russian military assets with missiles, planes, ships, everything within weeks, because NATO has that capability. Am I delusional?
You're absolutely correct. War against NATO means a very, very fast, very rapid defeat for Russia. But Russia will not fight against NATO. Russia will fight against countries that exit NATO or some other hybrid force, not Russia, but, for example, local Estonian militia, wearing Russian uniforms and speaking Russian language, but technically not Russians, will fight a NATO country. So Russia will not openly have this conflict. unless the country quits NATO, and they are preparing this pretext for countries quitting NATO by supporting all kinds of radical movements around Europe, in the US as well. And also they have this huge experience of using hybrid armies. There's literally like 10,000 man worth army can build itself up on the border with like Estonia or Finland very, very soon, all of a sudden. And then they claim that they are like native citizens of Latvia or Estonia or Finland, and they want to remove the government, that oppresses their right to speak like Russian language or whatever other language. I also consider this, open attack against NATO countries not really possible. On the other hand, we don't have enough information to talk, whether it's possible or not. Like, it can happen. Historically, Russia never openly attacked any NATO country. That's why there is like a very, very small possibility that it may happen. But generally, they can invest more into their informational warfare. They can grow more, those far right, far left movements that will be calling to quit NATO, concentrate on solving their inner issues and stuff. And then they will be swallowed by Russians, because not a single European country can withstand Russian attack on itself. And this is, everybody knows. Russians understand that very, very well. Unfortunately, a lot of citizens of European countries don't really understand that, because they believe that Russia is not their enemy.
I mean, yeah, I don't know about the topic enough to speak facts here, but it's my opinion that Brexit, for example, which is by now an old topic already, but it's dissolving the unity of the European Union, which together is one of the strongest and most powerful economic entity in the world. And Brexit meant that Great Britain, like England, I'm using the wrong country name here, UK, England. I know people are going to get back at me, but they ceded from the European Union. And in my eyes, now I cannot speak for the British, but in my eyes, it's a huge loss for the British, and it's a loss for the European Union also. It's just a lose-lose situation. They did it. Now, I would, again, if I think European Union as an economic entity and some countries going away from it, it becomes weaker. Who does it benefit? It benefits Russia. So I have no proof, but I would connect Russian influence somehow to Brexit.
I agree on that. Brexit was made internally by British experts, communications experts, I would say. That is from what I know. Of course, it does benefit Russia. I believe it, like, in my personal opinion, I am not a citizen of European Union yet, but in my personal opinion, it was a big strike on this unity that we had, the economic power, economic consolidation. So every separation of this kind makes our unity weaker and weaker. At this moment, when there's several biggest threats to the world's democracies, such as like China, Russia, etc., we must stay together like never before. That's why Russians create all kinds of informational operations to destroy this unity in the European countries, in the societies. As you mentioned earlier on the UATV, their main point is to make people fight for whatever reason. They create those tensions based on race, based on religion, based on nationality, based on language, etc., etc., your political views. And they will not stop. This will only grow, because after the elections in the US are finished, regardless of the results, they will switch their whole attention at European countries, and they will try to destroy European countries from within. They still have like 4 or 5 years to work on that and reach their goals, because even though European countries keep developing measures to fight Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation, we can see good examples in the Baltic countries, we can see good examples in Poland, for example, but it's not enough. It requires fundamental change of legislation, creation of new establishments that will be dedicated to combat Russian disinformation, involving journalists, involving communications expert, etc., etc. And even though Europe is several steps ahead than the US in this regard, because Americans believe that because they have freedom of speech, they have this absolute immunity against disinformation, which is absolutely opposite. But despite that, Europe still has to work harder on this. And I really, really hope that they will dedicate more resources, more efforts to protect citizens against Russian disinformation, and not only Russian disinformation.
Yeah, a lot of people in the West who are people who are fully pro-Ukraine, they don't accept these Russian narratives. They recognize them, and people who are pro-Russia, they don't accept the other side. But there are some people, and there are tens of millions of them in the West, who are somewhere in between, and they're vulnerable for persuasion of these narratives. And for example, one of the great persuasions were these videos of uniformed men storming into Orthodox churches. Now, recently a video was released where Russians shared that Ukrainian troops stormed into a church trying to arrest the priests and cause chaos there. Actually, it was a Russian church in Russia, and it was Russian troops, but they played it as it's Ukrainians. And since Ukrainians have the context of banning Russian Orthodoxy, which Russians already spinned into Zelensky bans Christianity, which is not true, then these people who see this, and in America also, Christianity and belief in God can also be one of person's foundations. They take it very seriously. Oh, Zelensky is banning Christianity. I mean, this is really bad. But I know it. Russian Orthodox Church is not a church. It's not a religious institution. It's a power structure of FSB, and it was the power structure of KGB. We know it. The Baltics, Finland, Poland, Ukraine, full out banned the Russian Orthodox Church. But in Germany, for example, banning an Russian Orthodox Church as a terrorist organization, people would take it as an attack against European democracy or attack against religious freedom, not knowing that this very thing they fight against is a weapon, comes to kill them. So Russia has an upper hand, and it's the European laws and European freedoms which unfortunately right now benefit Russia.
Yeah, it's a big vulnerability. It's not a bad thing. Like freedoms and the legislation that European countries have, European Union has, it's not a bad thing, but it has its vulnerabilities because countries like Russia, they absolutely despise foreign legislation, international law, and things like that. That's why they will use the freedom of speech in order to turn it into a freedom of hate speech. They will use freedom of religion in order to recruit spies and conduct their intelligence operations in foreign countries, which they do a lot. In the US, for example, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of parishes that in theory can be used, to collect information and recruit spies. So that's why I mentioned changes in legislation. We must make sure that if we want to have freedom of speech, we must be protected. I was a cop, right? And as a cop, I understand and know one thing. What is freedom? Freedom is when you have security. when you have security, when you are protected, then you have freedom to do whatever you like. Because if we take Russia, for example, they have no freedom. Therefore, they have no security, right? If you are protected, you have freedom to do whatever you like. If you know that nobody's gonna kill you tomorrow, or nobody's gonna arrest you for openly saying your thoughts, then you can just go on a street and express your opinion about whoever you like, your president, your government. This is your choice. This is your right. In Russia, you cannot do that. In Russia, you cannot criticize Putin. You will get arrested. You will go in jail, even if you are like Russian hero, right? Like Girkin Strelkov, the dude who started the war in Crimea, in Donbass, and now he's in jail, basically, because he criticized Putin. He criticized Russian command and ruling Russian regime. So there is no security and there is no freedom in Russia. In United States, in Europe, there is such thing, and you can speak openly as much as you want. You can criticize whoever you want, but at the same time, you also must be responsible for what you're saying, because if you openly retransmit the Russian psyops, which is created by Russian military personnel in order to destroy your country, your democratic state, then you must face responsibility for that, right? If you transmit hate speech as a free speech, then no, it must not be allowed. You must only speak what is legit, what is true, what is not created by Russians who want to see the demise of the Western countries. So the legislation must be changed, I believe, and it must be changed in a way so when you don't check facts, when you don't consider yourself an expert in what you're saying, right? If you retransmit the enemy propaganda, the terrorist propaganda, then you must face responsibility for that. And it's not because we hate freedom of speech. It's because we want to protect freedom of speech from toxic people like you. So that is one of the things that I would really, really like to see. I talked about it with Jake Bro. And Jake Bro, being an American citizen, he said that I don't see that happening because we have freedom of speech. We can speak whatever we like. But at the same time, I don't see many people on the streets of the United States, sharing the ideas of building this beautiful state of Syria and Iraq, otherwise known as ISIS. Or I don't see much people, proclaiming ideas of Osama bin Laden or Taliban, or, glorifying Adolf Eichmann on the streets, because there is legal responsibility for things like that, even though you have freedom of speech, but you cannot share terrorist messages, terrorist narratives, because it will result in victims, in casualties, in deaths of your citizens. At the same point, there are people who retransmit the terrorist narratives of the Russian Federation. They justify Russian war crimes. They glorify this God's chosen Russian race and stuff. At the same time, Russia was recognized by NATO Assembly and by the Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe as a terrorist regime. That's why we should not have double standards. If there's terrorists, we should fight them. We should understand that running away from people who want to kill you and who do all they can in order to see you dead is not an answer. At some point, you have to grow balls and fight back, like Ukraine.
Yes, this is the message I would like to say to every European leader, and even some leaders who prioritize their own country's economic growth instead of security. They're just short-sighted. If you look at 30 years perspective in every European economy, right now producing weapons and giving them to Ukraine in economy in 30 years is the most sane thing to do, is the most greatest investment ever, because you invest in the freedom of your country, therefore you're able to make money in the future. But they are very short-sighted. They're afraid of that 2% drop in GDP next year or after next year. The weapons don't give you any money back in 5 or 10 years. It's like typically one of the worst investments you can do, but in this case, it would be the best one. And it pains me that Germany, for example, I mean, Olaf Scholz. I'm not a fan of de-escalation. I'm not a fan of people being afraid of bullies at all. And Olaf Scholz seems to me like he is afraid. He just seems like a man who is afraid. There's so much more he could do. There's so much more he could say, but all I see is his attempts to de-escalate the situation, which always leads to more horrors with Russia.
Yeah, I don't know how you de-escalate such situations. Like, there is a bully that is very, very much dedicated to killing you, right? Or like taking your stuff. And how do you de-escalate? The only way to de-escalate is to give him what he wants. That's it. Like literally give up, raise your hands and capitulate, which is not the answer. In the times when nations are facing the possibility of war, such situations always require strong politicians, always. And if you don't consider yourself strong, you should at least remember that as a politician, as a manager of your country, you should freaking do your job at least. Even if you don't find yourself like particularly courageous, you at least should do your job as a politician. And your job as a politician is to protect your nation and make sure that they are prepared to face the enemy if such case happens. So like there are heroes, there are like national saviors, etc. Then there are people who literally must be reminded that they have a job and they must do this job because they are being paid for it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And also, I mean, United States is a topic I can only pretty much discuss in this podcast, because in my channel, as I said, in UATV, as soon as I touch this topic and say my opinion as a foreigner, United States, some of the citizens get very defensive. And they take it very personally that the foreigner has an opinion about United States politics. But I do. I actually have a candidate I support. I have all of that figured out for me, but I haven't shared it. But I think I can share where I stand with United States support to Ukraine. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump. I'm not a big fan of Joe Biden. I don't know about Kamala Harris because I don't know her. But knowing what Trump has said and how he behaves, he's just not an honest man, and I don't respect that. I cannot stand behind that. About Joe Biden, his promises were really good for Ukraine, but he didn't follow through. I mean, we again see Joe Biden's office following de-escalation path, which in my eyes is a sign of cowardice and a sign of weakness. They obviously don't know how Russian thugs in the street act. If you show any sign of backing off or any sign of fear, they will eat you alive. So you gotta punch back even if you get punched back in the face. And I see de-escalation policies in the United States office. I mean, the most powerful country in the world is trying to de-escalate. It is showing a sign of fear to a country that is 100 times smaller on the economic scale. I cannot fit it in my head. We as small Estonia, we're nothing, and we're like standing up to Russia, and we are. I mean, if we're on the way to banning Russian Orthodox Church and taking away citizen rights from Russian citizens. I mean, it's as blatantly out there as possible. And then there is Joe Biden's de-escalation policy. And again, I see people maybe getting very defensive about this because elections are coming. But this is how it is. United States right now, I mean, Trump and Biden both they have not performed good connected to Ukraine.
I agree on that, bro. Geopolitically, if we talk about Estonia, for example, doesn't matter if you're big or small, but you have this very, very nasty neighbor. And like we are in the same situation. Basically, all the neighboring countries, the countries that neighbor the terrorist federation, we all hate them for some reason. Like, why? Like, what happened?
Coincidence?
Yeah, like. But speaking of the citizens of the United States, they don't really associate Russia, that is like over there, you know, far on the other side of the globe, and things that happen in their country. And I'm talking about different conflicts that appear like during the Black Lives Matters, during those protests when Russians would organize like protest actions of one group of people and then their opponent in the same place at the same time, so they would fight, you know, or they would create media that would brainwash American citizens from within, not only create but also like fund those media, like Tenet media, etc. Unfortunately, American citizens don't really associate like that terrorist country that exists somewhere there, you know, those people without toilets and butter, and the problems that happen within the United States, like all of a sudden. But it's a part of a military plan that is being executed daily, you know, as Russian military plans. That's what they do. Speaking of criticizing like or discussing American politics, bro, I'm facing the same problem, because every single time I talk about like Donald Trump, for example, or Musk, you know, I receive like tons of commentaries on my YouTube saying like, don't, like, stay away from American politics. You don't understand anything, you know. I do. That's why I'm never discussing whatever happens inside of the American politics. I'm discussing whatever happens between America and Ukraine. And I'm discussing messages coming from, for example, Donald Trump, or coming from Biden, or coming from Lloyd Austin, who says we will give Ukraine anything required to last and you know, survive, but he never says anything about giving Ukraine everything required to win. The same with Donald Trump, who was asked 2 times during the debates whether he wants Ukraine to win or not, and he basically didn't say that he wants Ukraine to win. So we know his position. I will be criticizing him for that. I will be criticizing Biden for being too slow with military aid to Ukraine, because a lot of things that were promised in like 2023, they will only be delivered in like 2025 or 2026, while we needed them like yesterday. I will never talk about you know, politics of the country I don't live in, because it's stupid. It's wrong. Like it's like talking about things you don't understand like anything about. But at the same time, when I see messages, when I see those retranslated Russian narratives, when I see Cadence Owens justifying like Adolf Hitler and Trump endorsing him and stuff, I don't know. That is just so crazy, and I cannot you know, avoid talking about it, because it is something that concerns me as a Ukrainian. You know, you have like the biggest economy and biggest military power in the world. At the same time, the fate of a big European nation depends on you. Like the lives of millions of Ukrainian people, the fate of Europe's second largest country literally depends on you. And you, I believe, must also like understand that it depends on your decisions whether people in Ukraine tomorrow leave, or they will be buried under like ruins in the debris that previously was their home. So I think I don't want to to demotivate everybody. I want to do the opposite thing. I want to motivate. I want to motivate people to be more responsible and less toxic. This is a topic that I've been talking about on my channel the other day while studying, public opinion on my channel and some other platforms. I realized one thing. When we talk about Russian propaganda, we see something really interesting. Russians never produce content that would motivate you. They never produce anything positive. They never make anything like any content that would motivate you to do something. They will only produce toxic content to scare the living crap out of you and demotivate you as much as possible. That's why we as let's say like talking head on a screen, right? That we as people who deliver messages to our audience, people who share our opinion and have this opportunity to share opinion with big audiences, we should consider that. We should be less toxic. We should teach other people how to be less toxic to each other and make the world a better place. Because when you are motivated to do something, it's much better than when you're doing it out of like fear, out of anxiety, out of lack of confidence, which is exactly what Russians are doing. That is exactly the goal of all of their informational strategy aimed at American citizens and European citizens. So we must be a bit less toxic, a bit more positive. That is, in my personal opinion. And by the way, currently I'm working on one really, really interesting communication strategy for people like you and me. So we can use it to clear the space from unnecessary toxicity.
I mean, yeah, saying be less toxic. It's kind of an easy thing to say for a person who is not, like, you're not toxic. Obviously, you are naturally like that. But for people who are doxing it and don't know it, in my eyes, it begins with the responsibility, because everybody thinks that they're making the world a better place. People who really love Trump and support him believe that he is the one who makes their lives better. And therefore, they have to give their trust in him. But I find it really hard to accept this, because they follow him like a cult leader. And in my eyes, making the world a better place, the hardest part and the only true part to begin with is me right here. What change do I want to see in the world? What can I change in me that goes towards that change? And when I do that, I accept responsibility for me, for people around me. I see my presence, I see my weight in this space, and everything I do has more of an effect. So I really double think what I do to people and to myself. And I don't see people taking that responsibility, accepting that responsibility, because in my eyes, like placing your faith in somebody like a cult leader and blindly following them, not questioning them, is running away from responsibility, from yourself. Because if you really accept it, then maybe you would not support him, or maybe you would. But that's a question that I think a lot of people have to ask. And I want to connect this with Elon Musk, for example. Of course, America has freedom of speech. Elon has every right to say what he wants to say, however weird he is, however drugged he is sometimes. He speaks his mind and is very different in his communication. I would guess at some sober moments he says this thing, then he has some ketamine, says some other thing. His tweets remind me of that, weird schizophrenic behavior. But the thing is, being the richest man, the richest man in the world, and being an extremely influential man in the United States, he has a responsibility. His words mean a lot more than then he wouldn't have that money. And I don't think he acknowledges himself how much pain and suffering he can cause, and he is causing, and how dangerous he's playing around. And this is what I mean. Like, in my eyes, these people are not accepting their responsibility for their actions in the world. And for me, it's very hard to see this.
I don't blame people, even though people are to blame. Generally, nobody is born a good person. And you were saying I'm not a toxic person naturally. I was an officer, bro. Trust me, I know what it means. But generally, nobody is born a good person. We're all born evil. Like, look at the kids fighting in like a sandbox. They will kill each other, if not for grown-ups. Like, seriously, that's my toy, like, bam. But we grow up and we learn how to be better people. That's when everything starts, with the process of growing up and learning. And there are people in Russia, for example, that were never taught that they could be good people. They were only taught that if you are not committing violence against others, then they will commit violence against you. And that's exactly what we see in the Russian society, where elites commit violence against the citizens, and then their citizens commit violence against everybody else in order not to get stuck in this cycle or this circle of victimism. They commit violence against everybody else, other nations, Ukraine, everybody, their neighbors. And same situation with citizens in the United States. Those who follow people like Trump, they don't follow them because like they love them. They follow them because they were not informed that they can have a choice. They follow them because they are afraid, or because they were made afraid. They were made, being afraid of other people. They were scared by all that propaganda, and they were not taught that they have a choice, that they have a choice of being better people, less toxic people. They have a choice of being more friendly, more open. They have a choice of having 1 million friends around the world, share experience. It's not only about, trade, not only about numbers, but it's also about feelings, about emotions. There's like a lot of people, for example, in the MAGA movement, they support their veterans, which is like something I respect them for. But they are not taught, they don't have this understanding that they can also communicate with other organizations that support their veterans, for example, in like Estonia or UK or Ukraine, and they can share experience. Why they are not really interested about it? Well, because again, they were not taught that it's possible. They don't think about it. They should think more about things like that. They should be more open. The problem with like people in the United States, okay? The United States was a brand, like internationally recognized brand for years. It's like, what's the main currency that we use in the world? It's either euro or dollar, right? And because the US became so global, at some point, this gave the basis for far-right folks in the United States to grow, right? Because they say that why are we spending so much money like on all other countries if we have so many problems like inside our own home, right? Which they don't understand, that they are able to spend those money on other countries because they are so rich and powerful. Because this is the result of what their ancestors did, what their fathers and grandfathers did. This is the result of all those efforts and contribution by common people into developing this country and making it so great, right? There's no need to make America great. It's already great. Like every country uses dollar, as the most popular currency, besides Russia, of course, or I think Russia too. So what I was talking about is that because of this long span of development, and people got used to the fact that they live in a secure country with all kinds of freedoms you can have, with all kinds of economical freedoms, by the way, as well. It's very important. At some point, they were injected by those far-right ideas, and of course through paid media like Tenet media, like almost 500 different paid opinion makers in the United States. Kremlin is pushing those far-right narratives into their minds. They were not taught that they can be good people. They were not taught that they have alternatives, that they can be more friendly and open. And they, unfortunately, were injected with the ideas that were, by the way, massively produced by ethnic Russian people sitting there in Moscow, and then delivered straight on their computer screens by like Tim Pool and Tucker Carlson. So that is one big problem. Again, everything starts with the education and the process of growing up, widening your perspectives, widening your view, right? Perception. And this is, again, something that we can help the world with as Ukrainians, because this is the process we already went through. There is people from half a world right now fighting in the International Legion in Ukraine. And we are the people who can talk about being friendly and open and have international partnership with other countries, and sharing the best experience we all have. This is very important to teach people that they can be good, that people can have choice, that people can be friendly, and it's much, much more effective than being this angry, toxic, far-right Nazi, sitting at your ranch, watching Tim Pool every day. It won't bring you any result. It won't make you evolve. It will not make you progress, and it will not guarantee security for you and your family. It works the opposite way.
So many wisdom points here that it's so hard to give forward with words or sentences. I mean, I do feel the same way about these things. And when I think, how did I come to realize that, okay, I want to live happily, I want to take responsibility, I want to feel like I have control in my life, and in this way I'm going to behave how I want others to behave. It comes through these painful experiences and through life lessons and learning. And how do you give this forward to people who just don't have that, who are watching Tim Pool every day and who are stuck in this echo chamber of far-right ideas and, they took our jobs and stuff like that? How do you communicate that to them? How do you break the barrier?
Oh my God, it's hard, of course, and it only depends on people if they can break this circle of victimism and escape, evolve from it. Nobody except you will help you make this choice. But on the other hand, I noticed even back in 2014, 2015, when I had a lot of Ukrainian MAGA friends, in my circle of friends, Ukrainian MAGA friends, I'm talking about people saying we are fucked. There's no tomorrow, we were betrayed. and like you cannot trust anybody. You know, they completely had zero faith in like, they had no perspectives, they had no vision that something can change, no trust, no motivation whatsoever. What I noticed is that despite all that stuff, our media, by the way, looked much worse than the media in the United States nowadays. Literally, you go in Ukrainian Facebook and it's like on Twitter today. Like, seriously. It was just so toxic. And all the comments were toxic. I was posting some publications on my Facebook about like my service, my experiences, and they were all like so toxic in the comments. Oh my God. But what I learned is that motivating others with like good examples, with good practices, good stories, this is something that works. I don't really have like any idea how to enter, you know, how to access that community, right? I'm not even sure if I want to, but if they want, they will. Try to evolve, try to find some, you know, alternative to this circle of victimisms that they're stuck at, and they will progress. Again, there's like many people in the world, many decent people that support Ukraine. They are my main audience that I'm speaking to. Because one way or another, I believe that there's much more decent people out there than there's, you know, demotivated citizens who like don't have trust, you know, those people with great cynicism, etc. There's many more decent people, and they're my community. Part of your community, I believe, is also part of my community, because YouTube is a big village. But motivation, bro, is the main thing. Motivation, storytelling, best practices, showing people that there is always a choice. You have to invest some of your efforts, and it will always pay back. That is something that I'm trying to teach the people, the viewers who watch my channel, and hopefully those ideas will also spread in all the other communities. It's hard to it's hard to predict how it's gonna work, for a very simple reason. When we take marketing, there is this thing called return of investment, right? When you want to sell something, you want something to receive, right? You want to receive money for that. And when you make advertisement for your product, which again, marketing is extremely related to what we're doing on a YouTube, for example. So in the world of marketing, the success of the advertisement is measured by such KPI as return of investment. But in the world of PR, public relations, it's not measured with return of investment, because we are not selling stuff. We are giving people the value. We are planting the seeds that will grow into ideas that will in the future bring some kind of not return of investment, because we're not talking about money, but they will grow into ideas that will live, you know, that will go on.
I mean, talking about these ideas, it is the most dangerous thing if an idea grows and it's the idea that is based on harming others. Because you cannot destroy an idea. You can't destroy a nation. You can't destroy cities and villages and cultures. But you cannot destroy an idea. Let's take Islam, for example, and very radicalized Islamist T word, which I cannot perhaps say. I mean, they have an idea. This certain idea, what they have to do to get into heaven, and what the Prophet has said them to do. You cannot destroy that. You can destroy Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran. You can bombard it to zero. But if there's one person up in the mountains who has that idea, and if he's able to spread it, you cannot do anything to destroy an idea. It takes decades of re-education, like after the Third Reich's fall, and people were accepted back into society because, like, the Western powers needed Germany to work, so they had to let these prominent Nazi figures who are open public Nazis still back to society to work because somebody had to do the job. But it took like 3 decades to re-educate them and to show them that this system that they have now is better. And idea cannot be killed. It can be re-educated out of a person, but it takes massive amount of time and money. So that's why it's so difficult if far-right ideas in the West take hold.
Yeah, and those far-right ideas are always disguised as some other ideas. Hell with that. Like, even North Korea calls themselves like Democratic People's Republic. You know, what's like? North Korea is as democratic as, I don't know, Russia is free, or like it's as democratic as Russia, basically. So, of course, we as people who create those values, we must create the ideas that are stronger, that can live more. One way or another, we will never be able to reach everybody on the internet and everybody on Earth. No matter how hard we're trying, even Russians cannot do that. And generally, I don't think we should. You know, my grandma used to say, like, if you want everybody to like you, you will only end up having like nervous disorder or something like that. So the point is, we must do whatever we can to share the best ideas, the most positive ideas of being less toxic, more open, more friendly to others, being altruist, you know, helping others for nothing. Why it's important is because generally we never do anything for free. Like, we never do. Even when we help other people for free, we do it for a reward. And this reward is emotions. When we help somebody, we feel better inside. And that is why we do it, because we want to feel this. And by the way, this is probably the biggest reward we can have, because nothing else in the world will make you feel as good when you help somebody just because you can, you know, and without demanding anything in return. This is something that we should teach people. Like, I'm currently, I may sound like, you know, Dalai Lama, like, make world a better place and stuff. But at the same time, it's a strategy. When you look at Russians who never produce anything good, anything motivational, it's not like you watch Russian news and then you wake up as, you know, somebody with fresh mind, a happy person. When you look at Russians, they don't even smile. Like, they hate life generally. So we must do something that they cannot do, that they physically cannot produce, and they physically cannot make good content. Even though recently they tried to make that piece of cinematography called Russians at War, but at the same time, everybody understands that it's a freaking propaganda. Russians never did that before. Like, you know, those naive Russian Vankas with like those beautiful ideas, you know. He was a teacher and he was like a guitar player, and then they decided to go to war. And why did this war start? Like, nobody knows, but they just do what they have to do as a so. What the hell? Russians cannot do that well. And that wasn't even something motivational. It was literally an attempt to improve the image of the terrorist federation that is hated around the world for being atrocious and being a terrorist state. So this is something that Russians fail at, and this is something that we can and must use as a weapon.
That is a great conclusion to the podcast, actually. What can I do as a person? I mean, it starts with me. I can choose to live happy, to be responsible about my actions and about my well-being, and I have steps I can take personally. And we can do what the Russians can't, waking up with a smiley face and looking forward to seeing people on the street and smiling and creating something, not creating hate, but creating something that brings joy. But thank you, Operator Starsky, thank you, Andrei, for your wisdom and for your insights. And actually, after Saturday, right? So in 2 days.
Saturday, yeah.
We're going to do another podcast on Saturday on your channel. So definitely go, and channel's in the description. Go and check it out, and we'll see you there in Saturday already. I think I'm going to post this as soon as possible, actually. Maybe tomorrow, maybe on Saturday.
Okay, thank you so much, brother. As I said, always a pleasure. And I'm always happy to see you because you were the first European dude, and especially the first person I had like streamed with that literally arrived to Ukraine that I saw in offline. And I was extremely, remember, I was like running around like crazy, jumping on you because I literally couldn't believe my eyes. Being walked in Ukraine for like almost 8 or 9 years, and seeing your friends from the other side of the screen for the very first time, it was so insane. But I was really happy that we met. And I think next time we have some kind of offline meeting, we should try and eat surströmming the proper way, it should be eaten. Because let's not invite Brandon, because Brandon, even though he lives in Sweden, he doesn't know how to do it. But we gotta find somebody who specializes in this stuff, because I'm sure that we did something wrong back then.
I have to disappoint you here, but I'm pretty sure when I say I will never eat surströmming again in my life. It was so bad, so bad. But hey, we can share non-alcoholic beers and eat sushi and talk about relationships. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we can do. Yeah.